Hi everyone, welcome back. This is week 12. Today is June 16th. We are on the 85th day since we started a project. So for those who are new, I'm releasing a video every week to record our progress in our startup. So today we have 3 points. 1, we have a new member. 2, we're going to change our focus on what we're going to be doing. And thirdly, I have a guest that I'd like to introduce. To recap on what our startup is originally focusing on entry-level jobs. We see a lot of people who are new to the working force, who are working in restaurants and warehouses, and we see businesses that need to hire that, and there seems to be a mismatch. So we were originally thinking of, okay, if there's a problem here, we might want to solve that. This whole video in our project is about trying to build and replicate, or try to prove that there is a methodology of creating a unicorn startup. So we talked about how to produce unicorn startups with 3 elements, which I talked in the first video of this series. So if you haven't watched that, check that out in the link above. And I've been recording videos ever since each week. So the first announcement, we now have a new member. Her name is April. She's actually living in Atlanta. So she's much far, like she has a 3-hour time difference. And we haven't actually in person met her, but she knew us through my video in YouTube. So she got interested and sent a message to my Twitter account. So that was great. We finally had a chance to talk with her over Zoom, and she seemed to be really excited, and she has experience in this area of hiring. And also she was interested in really early stage startups. So she'll be joining us in the conversation, discussions, and actual work, what we'll be doing. So great to have April on board. Second point is we'll be changing our focus. So after the series of events during Vancouver Startup Week, finally had some time, and also I had a deadline to submit my pitch deck. Next week I'll be going to France to attend my 15-year MBA reunion back in Fontainebleau to see my INSEAD MBA classmates. I'm organizing a pitch event there, and as an organization I want to follow my rules, so I had to submit my deck by June 12th midnight. I scrambled to create the pitch. I had a few ideas of like what I want to do, so I did a bit of more research around that, and I decided on the deck that we'll be focusing in a different area. I had a very interesting conversation with Billy. Billy is the CTO of JobGet. I met him through a community called C100. C100 empowers Canadian startup founders, and he's working on JobGet. He's a UBC alumni. So he shared his experience. We talked about what was happening in the hiring human resource area. And JobGet focuses on entry-level jobs, retail and restaurants. They're not into the gig work hiring, but they're helping businesses to hire people for more long-term, to retain them. But he introduced a lot of interesting thinking. When you hire, you want to retain. How do you do that? Like, what part are you helping? So he also mentioned that they would work with S services as well. So the sourcing part, the ATS part, the applicant tracking system. So the tracking part is different, and also the retaining part is different, motivating. So there's a lot of elements around the hiring, even for like entry-level jobs. So it was interesting to understand the dynamics and like what part was lacking. Also, he introduced that if you go deep into an industry, there are some industries that have a lack of parts in the value chain. So he introduced me to a service. The service name is WorkRise. It was originally called differently, but basically what it does is it focuses on rig workers. So rig workers working in oil and gas industry, there's a lot of people necessary to actually do the manual labor, so digging in mines. And because it's a tough work, physically it's a very demanding job. The companies, the oil companies, gas companies, natural resource companies always need to continue to hire more workers. So WorkRise focuses on that specific area and helps these natural resource companies recruit these workers. And it seems that their business is working really well. So finding a niche that hasn't been addressed yet, a niche that has a demand and also has a potential for a market, a relatively large market size, is something that we should be exploring. So over the weekend, I explored in Canada and the US, in North America. Of course, we want to consider Mexico, but in North America, what professions are in high demand? So I looked up, and we've already discussed that, but people in trades, also people in medical, such as nurses and physicians, also like engineers, civil engineers, IT engineers, and engineers like in IT, but like going more in depth, such as like AI or data analytics, or like data scientists. Those were the professions that came up that were in high demand. Some of the professions are very small, so the market size is not big. And also, depending on the profession, some are in high demand, relatively correlated to the economy. So when the economy is doing well, there's high demand, but if the economy falls, there's no demand at all. So there seems to be some professions that have a very volatile demand curve. I also did research around the turnover rate. So some professions have a very high turnover rate. That means that a lot of people leave their work, leave the company quite often. And specifically in Canada, there is a lack of physicians. This has been a huge problem in Canada. So medical doctors, if you get sick and you go to a hospital, it's fantastic that Canada has great health insurance, and that helps a lot, but it's just that there's not enough physicians, medical doctors, to support the service. So even if you get injured or you're about to give birth to your child, the waiting time could be enormous. Like I've heard a lot of horror stories around that. So there's definitely a lack of physicians, medical doctors. Also, in the US also for this, but there's a lack of nurses. So nurses during COVID, it was really tough, high demand for medical services, also very demanding because everybody got sick and the capacity wasn't enough to serve all the people who got sick. So there's a high demand in medical services in general, but because of that high demand in nurses, and we've seen in Canada and the US that there's a lot of people who have been burned out and leaving the clinic and hospital. They will not want to continue working there. So turnover rate is very high. So combining these together, I think, and I need to do a bit more research, and this is the work we have to do continuously after this video toward next week, is that it seems that nurses and physicians have a big enough market size. They seem to have a good turnover. Also, because they're a specific profession, the general, let's say Indeed and all those general job boards are not really addressing their need when they're looking for jobs, and also for, let's say, hospitals, clinics, and all other medical services who are in need for those professions. It is hard to find that through the general job boards and general HR services that are around. So in the US, for nurses, there's this service called Incredible Health. They are a San Francisco based company. They started in 2017 and they seem to be doing very well. They have received so far $97 million of funding, and it seems that estimated they make 25 million revenue each year. So that kind of proves that there's a market there, it's in high demand, it seems that it's not addressed with other services. So US, they already have incredible health, but it seems that in Canada, there's nothing out there that fills that gap, that need yet. Also for medical doctors, physicians in the US, there's Doc Cafe that helps doctors find jobs. So again, a very specific niche market. But in Canada, again, I can't really find anything that is default, go-to. So I think this is an interesting area, niche market, that we can explore to see if there is enough demand here. Confidence level. So exploring the other professions, we found that the medical service seems to have a demand that's not fulfilled, especially in Canada. Also for trades also seem to have trouble finding jobs, and also there's a high demand there. So opening up, I think we can seek more and bigger and better opportunities here. So my confidence level compared to last week, which was around 20 or 30, we were kind of getting stuck in our head into like entry-level jobs, restaurants and whatnot. We were trying to do staffing service, which was difficult to kind of get it off the ground. I think if we spend more time on it, I think we could have done that. But looking at the market, I think we want to explore other areas at the moment. So high hopes for that. Confidence level, I think a bit more higher, 30 to 40%. So as I mentioned, for next week, I'll be in France and traveling. So I have limited time, but I also will be talking to my classmates who will be doing a lot of interesting projects. So it'll be great to talk to them, get their ideas. Probably I'll get a lot of feedback on my pitch deck. So that will be very valuable. And I will communicate what kind of feedback I got from my class. Preparing for INSEAD, a pitch event, I had a chance to meet up again with Rustam. He's working on his own startup, and so I visited his office. So he runs a business called Tuktu, and he can explain this much better than I can, but he helps elderly people. He's creating service to match people who are elderly, who need help for their daily activities, and also people who are willing to help the elderly and to be a part of the community. I think this is a wonderful service.
There you go.
So you did it in India.
Yeah, no, thanks, Hiroki, for the video and for inviting me. Yeah, this is my second startup. My first startup was Boon, which was setting up solar power plants across Asia and Africa. And these were community power plants which ran off solar power, and they generated electricity for communities living around the plant.
And now, how long ago that you moved here to Vancouver?
Yeah, so I moved to Vancouver in 2016, and so it's been nearly 8 years, eight and a half years already. And when I moved here, I sold off my previous company, Bones, and then I moved here. And initially, I was working with the Canadian government's Clean Tech Fund, Sustainable Development Technologies Canada, as the director on the West Coast, which is in Vancouver. And sometime during COVID, I realized that my parents live in Singapore, and I realized how difficult it was to manage your parents or your aging loved ones from a distance. And when I looked around over here, I found that problem was quite a lot over here as well, where a lot of our older adults were living alone in their homes, and the families were not close by. So while medical care was well taken care of for them, and they had access to medical care, they often lacked companionship, and they lacked access to helpers or friends and family who would do little errands for them, like grocery shop, driving to the hospital for appointments, or helping with technology. And I felt there was a profound need for family caregivers like myself and family members to find these networks of trusted helpers for their care recipients. So that's how Tuktu got created. It first started as a small group activity. Then we realized that the market was huge, and we had to make a valuable product. So yeah, we built a product and we launched it last year.
The aging population is just growing in every country. So more probably for our generation, we have our getting older parents, and we care about them. But again, a lot of people, you decided to work in other cities or countries so that you're just distance. You want to provide the love and care that you would provide if you were close to them, but you just can't. So yeah, it's just
Maybe you can show. Yeah, absolutely. So this is for marketing boards.
yeah.
And it's a community-powered care, because one of the big differences we have from others is all the providers or all the people who provide services on the platform are regular people, regular community members. There are people like you and me, and they have a little bit time in their hand to provide the service. So they provide that service whenever they can, and that's something that we really focused on, because we wanted the experience to be like family, like calling a neighbor to help out, and not super professional. So that's why we call it community powered care. And yeah, we do a lot of work on the platform to matchmake the right person for the companion of your loved one. So we have a bunch of AI algorithms which do the matchmaking based on language, ethnicity, preferences, based on any kind of challenges that you have, so that the person who shows up at the door is safe, is also the best fit, most of the person of one.
It kind of helps, like from a community perspective as well. You are new to Canada, you don't know anybody, get to know people through the service, and also people get to know other people. So like as a healthy community, each other, you want to know who's your neighbor, all that. So it provides that function as well. It strengthens the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for the person giving the service, it's not just the money, it's the access to being a part of the community to help also, right? Like, every human being wants to help somebody else, right? And so we are trying to make it easy for a person to offer help and easy for a person to plug into the community. So that's essentially very important.
So a lot of people like do gig work to fill in, grab cash, but there are people who have other incentives, not just cash, to help to provide service. Definitely, the easier it is, like the more people will do that, especially they'll feel better, good about themselves, for their self-esteem as well. I think that.
Thank you.
No, not at all. Yeah, thank you. So we're here at Rustam's office, and yeah, great to meet him.
Okay, so that's all for this week. Thank you for watching this video to the very end. And if you have any comments, please write it in the comment section below. Any feedback, any advice that you have, any suggestions, or any companies you know that might be interesting for us to look into, please write it down. Also, if you can like this video and if you can subscribe, if you're interested in watching us through the journey, please subscribe. And yeah, see you next week. Bye.